Hello everyone. This video is a kind of follow-up to my last one, which covered the Sonic cycle. So if you would like some more context for the ideas that I have here, then I invite you to watch that one first, but it isn't necessary. In that video, I explored the reasons as to why the Sonic the Hedgehog series was still popular with a large group of people, despite the long-standing critical struggles that the games have had. My conclusion was that while the series has alluded to more complex characters and thematic ideas, the games have failed to capitalize on this potential, creating this cycle of anticipation and disappointment that exists today as the Sonic cycle. I concluded that video with the hope that the then yet to be released Sonic Frontiers would explore some of these ideas and begin to move the series forward. And after playing it to 100% completion, I can say that Sonic Frontiers is definitely a step in the right direction. While the story remains on the simple side, where the writing shows clear improvement is in the interaction between the characters. There are several conversations that the characters have in which they reference events that have happened to them in the past and how that affects who they are now. These conversations aren't just generic filler text that avoid specifics like you might find in the previous games, such as,
"Oh, Sonic, you've saved me so many times."
Sorry. Rather, these conversations make reference to events in characters' lives that you would have witnessed if you had played the other games. This continuity gives the characters a place to build from, and by the end of this game, they've undergone personal growth and resolved to change things in their lives for the better. Let's take a slightly closer look at the character arc that Tails goes through, as I think that this is where the writing shows the most awareness. A key aspect of Tails' personality is his lack of self-confidence in his own abilities. This results in his relationship with Sonic being one of dependence rather than on equal footing. This is a key point in Tails' story from the Sonic Adventure games, where he attempts to overcome these fears and stand on his own 2 feet. And where the series has stumbled is that in many of the games after Sonic Adventure 2, they've gone back on this development that Tails went through, each game varying wildly on his level of confidence. And this reversal of character is exemplified most in 2017's Sonic Forces, where Tails is so afraid without Sonic around that he is immobilized by that fear at the mere sight of an enemy. How Sonic Frontiers goes about trying to correct this is by acknowledging the inconsistencies. Not in a way that is lampshading or a nudge and a wink to the audience type of way, but in a way that both explains the inconsistencies and uses them as a part of Tails' character arc in this game. In the game, he realizes that Sonic is a crutch that he will always use if it is around, and that this turns Tails into the very burden that he does not want to be. And by the end of this game, he comes to accept that if he's ever to grow as an individual, he has to leave Sonic's side willingly and go on his own adventure. Sonic's reaction to this is also well done, with a melancholic sense that for the first time in a long time, he will have to be without his loyal twin-tailed companion. This clearly affects him in a way that he doesn't expect. Despite being a character that loves his freedom, he clearly liked his older brother role and has mixed feelings about it being taken away from him. But he's also very supportive of the decision that Tails makes, using the time that he saved Station Square all by himself in Sonic Adventure 1 as an example of what Tails is capable of when he believes in himself. It's very well done, and it's a rewarding piece of character development for both these two for someone like me who is aware of the history of the series. While the story for Tails is the one that stands out the most to me, that's not to say that Sonic's other companions are neglected. Both Knuckles and Amy are given arcs that address key aspects of their characters. Knuckles talks about his isolation, being the last of his kind, and his role as the Master Emerald's guardian, while Amy's focuses more on her compassionate nature and what she can bring to people. Even the series' antagonist gets some attention in the story. Eggman is reminded of the times he's teamed up with Sonic to defeat a greater threat. Specifically mentioned is the endings of Sonic Adventure 2 with the Bio-Lizard, and Sonic Heroes with Metal Sonic. There are more of these moments in the game than I would have expected, and the game ends with the characters having grown and having new goals to aim for. What's important now is that the series continues with this development in the next game. Hopefully the place that the characters are left in at the end of Frontiers is the beginning of new journeys for each of them to go on. So, as someone who has followed the series for a long time, I'm quite happy with how the story and the characters turned out, and while it might not seem like a lot to someone who's unfamiliar with the games, It really is a breath of fresh air how much attention the characters received in this game when you compare it to the stories of previous games going back the last 10 or 15 years. But video games aren't just about the stories, so I suppose that I should say a few things about the rest of the game. The game's move to a more open design was a success for the most part. The open zones that you can explore function less like Breath of the Wild open spaces, and more like large Tony Hawk Pro Skater levels that bounce you from one platforming challenge to the next, usually through a rail to grind or a dashpad. This was a concern that I had before the game came out, but I think that the blending of the open spaces with the more traditional, fast-paced platforming elements that the series is known for works well. The cyberspace levels were okay. They're found throughout the open worlds and provide an experience more akin to the previous 3D level-based Sonic games. They were all quite short, and I found that many of the levels reused the level design of previous games. The most blatant of these for me was one of the last ones that you'll find, which is almost a one-to-one recreation of Metal Harbor from Sonic Adventure 2. This actually kind of works for the story, as the levels are meant to be digital reconstructions of Sonic's memory. It's just disappointing that there's nothing really new here. I must specify though that the problem here is not with the game, but with me. This is only an issue because of my experience with the series, and that a newcomer wouldn't notice anything here. What else is there? The game's combat is fine. It's more of a visual spectacle than anything, but it works well enough. The one thing that did take me by surprise was these giant boss fights that serve as the conclusions to the open world zones. These were a real spectacle, and while there's very little in terms of complicated gameplay here, they serve well as a break from the normal gameplay. Also, with a couple of them, especially the last one, it's clear that someone on the development team is a huge fan of Neon Genesis Evangelion, and I certainly wasn't expecting that in a Sonic the Hedgehog game. That was kind of weird to me. That's everything, I think. I mean, this is by no means a comprehensive look at the game, because really, video games are meant to be experienced by playing them, and I would like to leave you with some surprises should you decide to play this for yourself, which I think you should. But I suppose in closing, I'll just say that I think Sonic Team has moved in the right direction with this game, and I just hope that whatever they do next can continue taking the series another step forward and hopefully not 2 steps back.